Digital, right? So, I hope you all know by now how to open a company file. I hope you all are not going to double click on the file and try to open it in different format. Right, so that is just written button by now. I will open, then I find my company file. Right, and I select OK. And then I select the third option. You have 70 days more and continue. Right. When you open that, you should notice there is a message, pop-up message appearing. What is this pop-up message? Yeah. Something we learned last week. What type of transaction it is? Give very specific name for this type of transaction. Recurring transaction. So these are recurring transactions are shares. Right. So this pop-up message shows you the recurring transactions. That recurring transaction we recorded on 30th April, as I remember. Right? On 30th April we recorded that, and we asked the system to remind me at the end of every month. So we gave the first reminder to call on 30th of May. Right? 30th of May we wanted the first reminder. But unfortunately now 30th May has gone because we are operating in 2023-2024 financial year. So the first recurring period has already gone. Therefore, they are giving us the reminder that you have a past due transaction to be recorded. Right? So this recurring transaction pop-up message is a very good insight in the examination. And that's why I'm highlighting this. When as the examination, and focus on this. When we mark the examination papers, when you open the company file, right? Finally, it's recurring pop-ups. You can understand this, right? When you open the student's company file, let's say you are the student, then you did the examination. The examination contains the recurring transaction, right? And then when as a result, then we open the company file, when recurring message pops up. We know this student has recorded the recurring transaction. You don't go into the list and see if it is right. That is a very positive impression. When we open a company file, out of 10, only 1 or 2 company file will have this recurring pop-up, for my experience. Right? So they will have this pop-up. Okay? I don't know the reason. Some are going through the identify, some have recorded it on a long day. That's why it will pop up. Right? And then they get a little bit lower marks, rates are wrong. And when it finally goes on, it is a very positive impression about your answer script. Right? That is very good to have based on the impression. You don't give much, but that is a good impression. Right? So you don't full marks just by looking at the performance. Yes, that is important. Therefore, when you are recording such transaction, if you get such a transaction in an examination, you better record it properly. So this is the outcome, right? And remember that name, recurring transaction. You can't look at your books and notes at the mid-semester quiz. When a similar case comes, you should have the name in your mind, recurring transactions, right? You press Control and R to see the double entry of the transaction. What do we call that? Control. We press Control and R in keyboard to see. Yeah, what is the name? Technically, recap. Recap of transaction. Now another word, recurring transaction. These technical words will be tested in your quiz. Right? So I'm telling you the questions. Still, you can't. Then you can't get low marks for the quiz. Okay? Right. Just close this. Don't record it. Close this transaction. Right. Now, we have what we have done up to now. If we just have a quick look at the stuff we have done. After creating the company target, we modified the account list, right? And then we modified the tax codes. Tax code we modified first, and then we prepared the account list. And then we made sure the account list is our journal, our ledger, the ledger is according to our requirement. Ledger is the part of an account. Everything comes to end of the day, comes to the ledger. And we make sure the ledger is proper. And then we started recording some transactions. First, we started with some expenses. Some expenses that are spent using bank or cash accounts. Right? We spent a few on few expenses. Now, that's fine. So your business is live. But for you to run your business, I purposely told that word. Now your business is live, just live. But it's not running. For you to run the business, you need to start your retail and service process. Right? Still, we have not done that. For you to start your retail process, right, or service process, you have 3 steps actually. Right? One is input, right? Input that is required for your retail process, and then the process, input process, and the output. Right? That is the normal process. Input you should have, and there should be some processing happening in the organization, and there should be some output. Output is basically the sale. Input is the purchasing function, right? Within that, the process is the operation, where you are providing services, where you are packaging, delivering the products, all that, the process. Okay. So in this input process and output process, we are going to start with the input side. And in this business, the input is starting with purchases. Okay. So if you can remember what is our business and products and what is the model, we are offering some products, right? Some products. Some are physical products, some are service products. Now, when we call something as products, okay, that contains both physical items and services. Why do I say so? If you take a bank, anyone who is working for a bank, this place. Anyone who is working for a bank, no? You're working for a bank. Now, why don't you raise your hand? You should be proud of it. Working in a bank or a bank, doesn't it? I don't know. Personally, think of me giving letter and you can't make. It's a bank. Okay, so you are working for a bank. Then, what are the products in your bank? Your bank is having products. Product. Product to overall your line. Then product you are putting on the either to earn money. Usually your products are the ones that give you money. Like loans. In loan, these are loan money over, but loan is the product where you earn money. Right? If you take 40, for 40 you get interest. Your credit Okay, if you are paying and you are paying cost to the land, and is that it will include for loans, for leasing facilities you are arranging, for owning, all this, you collect interest from us. That is your sale. Those are the products. For you to do that with money, so you collect money through those these savings or right? Collect others' money and then you create products and you sell. Right? So it's a organization. You have so this is a clear cut. What are the products according to that? We have physical products. Right? We are selling cricket equipment, we are selling cricket accessories. At the same time, we are providing cricket lessons services. They are also products. All right. So now we are looking at the purchasing side of it. When we are looking at the purchasing side of it, we want to be we want to be purchasing the service. Right? We want to be purchasing the services. We will be purchasing the items because I hope you all can understand the difference between products and services. Right? The products and services. Products can be stored, products can be touched, they have physical existence, and all these criteria are there. But if you take the service, services are not physical, services you can't store, right? You can't keep it for future use, right? When service is provided, at the same time you have to consume it. Yeah. When we are buying items, we have to always focus on in this type of business where they have both products and services. We have to primarily focus on purchasing the physical goods, right? So now we will start with the purchasing process. I want to draw your attention on few things in an organization, right? Before starting the technical stuff, in an organization, in the purchasing process, right? In the purchasing process, what is the cost process happening within the purchasing department? If you are working for any organization, which are procurement for purchasing department, how do they start the process? What is the process of purchasing something that you want to sell? What is the exact starting point of purchasing? This is a new company, you are going to start the process. Yeah. What is the starting point? I thought you are saying the starting point. What is the starting point? How do you start the purchasing process? We come to another purchasing for the procurement. Procurement is a broad concept that contains all the services, but this is for purchasing. Another purchasing process. How do you start and how do you end the process? Yeah. Need recognition. Okay, to identify what is the need, what are the items you want to purchase and all that. Then how do you purchase requisition? Purchase requisition for you to raise the purchase requisition. So it's an internal document, right? So maybe the sales department or maybe the operations department will send the purchase requisition to the purchasing department. They want highlighting that requirement to purchase. I'm talking about beyond on the purchasing side. The purchasing department, how do they start the process? Yeah. Your first one is right. You first identify your requirement, right? First you identify your requirement, what you want to purchase, right? Then frequency for a quotation, okay. Any other? This. Having an idea? Yeah. How do you that? It is legal. You identify this, that's right. After that, after identifying the need, contribute. That's the process. That's it. Paper please. Apply. Apply is to do something. Do it practical, right? Don't become right. Don't think of very big operating settings. Just think of very small shop, right? You are financial, right? Then you get the requirement. What is this item to be purchased, right? And then you will be looking around from whom I can purchase this, right? Then you look at the supply. Now this part is important because in the system we will be following this process. That's why I am drawing attention on this process. This is not a theoretical learning where I can just have a chat and later just wake up and sleep in front of myself. This is not pure reality. This is unprofitable practicality, which will be which we will be practicing in the software. This is the process we are supposed to follow, right? Because if you don't have an understanding what this process is, you will be just clicking on the next button just because I say. You don't know what we are doing here, right? You will be just creating a supply card because I say, okay, create supply card, okay, right? So next day you will be calling for quotation because I say. You don't know why you are calling for quotations, right? That's why I'm telling you the process. This is not because I like it or this is not because I teach you, because that is the process. Right? So first you get the need, then you look for suppliers, right? Once you find the new suppliers, from those suppliers you will be calling for quotations. Right? You are new suppliers, you ask for prices. What are your prices? Right? After calling for quotations, you will pick the supplier for your order. Now, this quotation calling and supply selection process is very serious in the government sector, right? In the private sector, you can, depending on the management's decision, they can pick the supplier conveniently. In the people already they can say, okay, we buy from this supplier, right? It's simple. In the government sector, it is very serious, right? Practically, what is happening, I don't want to disclose whether it's strictly happening or not, but in the document, in the written documents, that is the most big process. You should not be able to buy it, but I am not seven, right? So once you get the supplier, then what you do? Next what you do? You select the supply based on the quotation. So you have prices, you have the supplies. Then what do you use? Yeah, that is the technical part. Technical part. I'm asking the process. In the process, top level is what is the next step? You identify the to pick the supplier, you lock the supplier. Then no one is working for a purchasing or procurement department in a company. Then what? Yes. Yeah, you register the supplier. Supply section, you call for quotations because of they are registered, right? You call for quotation from the registered suppliers. Right? What is the next step? What is the next step? Yeah, exactly. You raise the purchase order. Now, you are not working companies, right? Where are you working for these firms? And those who are working for it, it's okay, it is not wrong. Those who are working for it, Those who are working for companies, organizations, non-money companies. They are accounting or finance department, right? That's why they for a company, right? Then you should have a rough understanding. I know that you are maybe you are working on a particular function, right? To be handling a particular function. But you need to have the broader picture of how these things are happening. Right? Otherwise, so these are the broadest way of explaining. And you talk about the document side or project side. So have an understanding, otherwise you don't know where in the process you will reach. Right? So then you raise the purchase order. After raising the purchase order, what happens? Raise the purchase order. Purchase order is the legally binding document that you ordered the goods. After raising the purchase order, you can't reject that. I didn't order that. You can't say I didn't order that. I don't want that. Right? So it's the legal document. Purchase order. After receiving the purchase, just this number. And what are the different levels now? So after raising the purchase order, the supplier, right? The supplier will accept the purchase order and then the supplier will dispatch to the goods. Supplier will dispatch to the goods because there are no further confirmation required. Purchase order itself is a legal binding document. Then supplier will dispatch to the goods. Usually, when the goods are dispatched, along with that, they will send you the invoice. Right? That is the starting point of the accounting. Even though the PO is the legal binding document, PO is not the starting document of accounting. In accounting process starts with the source document. Source document is the invoice. Right? From supplier side, that is sales invoice. From other side, that is the purchase invoice. When I was in my advanced, I thought there are two types of documents called purchase invoice and sales invoice. Later on, I realized when I started with companies, I realized the sales invoice. From the supplier side, that becomes the sales invoice. From my side, it becomes the same. So that's much of confusion we have in the education system. Right? They are total two different documents. Sometimes you just say, right? Then once you receive the invoice, you record that invoice to your account, right? And before doing that, you have to check the goods whether you receive the required items and then you raise the small document. What is the document? Put it with DRN, put it with the so you check your goods and confirm that this goods are in the right quality and in the right quantity. Then you raise the DRN. Right? After raising the DRN, only you make the payment. Right? Once you make the payment, that is the purchase. Alright? So that is the purchasing process. I hope you understood the process. Right? Why did I tell you that? Because we are going to now follow that process. Right? In that process, first let's say we know the requirement, and then we are going to find suppliers, and then we are going to enter those suppliers into the that is the thing we are going to do. Right? So before that, we have to set up our supply purchasing process. Before it values, we start with Okay, so all right. So now we are going to find few the processing process. Okay. Now we are going to fine tune the purchasing process before starting major processes. Okay. Before starting major processes, we are setting the default values for those processes. Right? Can anyone tell me what is the process we use to set the default values of a major process? For example, we set the default values for the accounts process. Right? Using a particular data. What is for we are going to set the default values of the what is the data we are going to use? To set the default values of a process. Candidate, what is the project we are going to use? To set the default value of maybe more. Now, 2 weeks back, we set up the default value for the account product. Now, we are supposed to set the default value for the purchasing product. There was a particular mechanism we used. Tool we had. What is it? Easy setup assistant. There was a technique called easy setup assistant. So in that easy setup assistant, we had few major functions. In those major functions, we were setting the default one, right? So basic setting down the process. Now we will look at the easy setup assistant. The path is setup and easy setup assistant, right? Now, if you are writing down notes, I know you are not writing notes. If you are writing notes, you can write down the path of setting preferences. Sorry, not preferences. Setting up the purchasing process. Setting up the purchasing process. The mechanism you are using for it is setup and easy setup assistant. Right? So there you get the major functions, right? Major functions or major categories of functions you have for the business. There you find the purchases, right? Purchases. You are going to get the default values for purchases. All right. The path is setup, is setup assistant, and out of these functions, I am selecting purchases, right? Purchases section. Okay, right. Then we are going to follow the process. In the introduction, there is a small explanation given. I want you all to read that introduction so I can understand what you are going to do through this process. Can you read that? Ready? Because that tells you everything you are going to do in this project, right? And these words, these terminology, these structures you are going to use in the entire purchasing process. Okay. So the purchase easy setup assistant will help you set up your suppliers and purchase information, right? So including your supplier and suppliers and your purchasing information you are going to enter. The assistant allows you to build your suppliers list and historical purchase for those individuals. So in this process, you can add suppliers, and you can create the list of suppliers. And also, if there are historical balances, you have done many previous transactions with those suppliers. So in those balances, you can include in this process. Right? Unfortunately, for this company, we don't have such balances. But if you have balances, you can include it. Okay? And you can also select a purchase layout and decide on buying details and payment information that will be assigned to each of your suppliers. You can always change this information for some specific supplier later. That says when you are setting up the suppliers, you can, and when you are setting up the process in the process, you can choose the purchase layout. Right? What is the layout of the form you are going to fill when you are making purchases? There are a few layouts, we will discuss them later. So in this process, you are going to set the default layout, the layout that you are going to use the most. Okay, and also you can decide the payment information, right? Then when you are creating suppliers, these default values will be automatically applicable for those suppliers. But after creating the suppliers, for each individual supplier, you can modify it. Right? It doesn't mean for all suppliers, the layout and everything would be same. This is the default value. Once you create the supplier, you can individually edit those suppliers. Okay? So that is the customization options available. To make sure that all your supplier payments are recorded in the correct account, you can review the account used to track the uh, money you receive from suppliers. You can choose another account if necessary. So here you can select an account to track the money you receive from your suppliers. So you are very sure that all the payment, all the receipts will be deposited in that particular account, right? But if you want, you can change that as well. So that's about the discussion, introduction. So that says what you are going to do here. You are basically going to set the default. That's why I'm always letting know that word, default values. Right? Default values you are going to set here, but later, when you want to customize any of these, you have that option. All right. So with that understanding, we'll go to the next step. The next step is to set the layout. Right? So there are basically four layouts, right? There are four layouts, and also the first option is no default. Right? No default means there is nothing called default. Every time when you create a supplier, you will have to originally pick a layout. Right? But if you select any other layout out of these four, when you are creating the supplier, automatically that layout will be selected. Right? But later, if you want to change the layout, you can change that as well. Right? Then what is this layout? Simply, the layout is the shape of the form you are filling, right? When you are making the purchase, right? When you are placing a purchase order, when you are placing any purchase related documents, what is the shape of that form? Okay. So I want you to read in front of each layout. There is the description. When you select no default, use no default. If you purchase layout varies from supplier to supplier. From each supplier, for every supplier, if your layout is changing, then you can go with the no default option as well. But if you select service, what is the meaning of the service layout? I want you to read it. Right? Not for the sake of reading, I want you to read and understand. Because that is important in the examination. You have to decide what layout to use. Right? There will be no one to guide you. There will be no one to tell you, please use this layout. You will have to decide the layout based on the nature of the transaction. Right? That's why I want you to understand the layout and what type of transaction will be recorded under this layout. Read it. To make it more efficient, I will ask questions after reading. I'll give you 2 minutes to read this. Then I will ask you, what is your understanding about the layout? From every row, one person, one student. Okay. And then I will ask the question from every row. You should think of what type of things will be recorded in this. Examples of, right? You should think what type of transactions, what type of things will be recorded after this. Okay, shall I start from that side? Yes. From this program. What is the meaning of service payment? But I'm why? Hopefully. Yeah, from this row. This content for the person there. Yeah, third layer. Third layer. What is the idea of third layer? The human being. That is the exact what I want to say. So that is the reason that I wanted to that is one point to raise. There's nothing called providing service. Right? Now that is the point I want to clear out from this side. This side, you know. Yes. Yeah, I'm okay. Okay. Now read it again. Read it again. This is a very tricky point I want to highlight. If you are clear about this point, most of your problems will be very clear out, right? In this explanation, there is nothing mentioned about buying a service. That is a tricky point. Because the moment you read it as a service layout, you tend to think when you are buying a service, you would be using this point. There's nothing like that. Right? In services, usually, unless it's a dealership, you don't buy services. You have the vehicle inside, you offer the service. Right? Just like goods, you don't buy the service. The meaning here is, in any company, you will have a list of products that you offer. Right? If you take a company like this, it will have a shorter list of items. There are security equipment and some services you are offering. Right? But if you take the product list like a supermarket, so they will have a list of thousands of items. Right? So how long that is? There is a list of items that you are buying and selling. That is called items list of company. Right? If you are buying anything, right? Popular is something. Popular is okay. When you are buying anything which is not in that item list, anything you are buying which is not in that item list, you have to use search. Here, the reason is the search layout. When you click the search layout, you can see a rough preview of the search layout in front of you. Right? We can see it has very few columns. Only 3 columns as I said, right? Very few columns. The reason is we have a description and the total subtotal, that's it. Right? There is nothing to update the inventory values, quantities, right? The selling prices, standard prices, nothing. It's just the description and the value. So you are buying something that should not update your items list. That should not update the quantities. It has only with the inventory. That's the typical idea. Okay? If you are going to purchase something for that purpose, right? Not for resale purpose or not in items list, you can use the service layout. Then it is very clear now, better to write down a small point because tomorrow it will not be clear again. But you will forget it. Then look at items. Then go to the next layout, item layout. What is the meaning of item layout? It's the opposite of it, right? You are using the items layout. When you use the items layout, you can see the number of columns in your preview. In your preview, you can see there are a number of columns. So many columns. The meaning is, if you are buying anything from your items list, right? You are buying anything from your items list, you should be using the items layout. In this item layout, we have columns for quantities, for the prices, right? For the totals, values, back or export, everything. Right? Because with that purchase, your inventory quantities should be updated. Right? That's why you have all the required columns when you are buying something from your item list. Right? Now, for example, we take a supermarket, right? A supermarket. So you are having a milk powder, right? A milk powder brand called P. When you are buying milk powder brand called P, that is in your item list, right? So when you are using 100 packets, 100 milk powder packets, or then when you are entering the purchase order, right? When you receive the invoice, when you enter the invoice, automatically your inventory should be updated by 100 volumes, right? 100 packets. Okay. For you to update that, you have to have a volume column in the layer. Okay. So in that case, you are using the item layer. Alright. Let's say you are buying some cleaning material to clean the floor of the supermarket. Right? You are not buying that to resell. That is not available in methods. The product is not available. Right? So you are buying some material, very special material, industrial material to clean the floor of the supermarket. Then in that purchase, you don't have to update your inventory values. It's not that in your items list. Right? For that purpose, you just need the description, the material, and the value you pay for accounting purpose. Right? So that purchase we can record to a service layer. Right? It's like you are having different deal books. One deal book has few columns, you record simple transactions. You have another deal book where you record detailed information that can update all the other places. Right? So it's like that. 4 layouts. I hope you understand. Alright. Then look at the professional layout. In the professional layout, You are using the professional layout, then you are obtaining the professional service from someone, right? When you are obtaining the professional service, when you are buying the professional service from someone or some organization, you are using the professional layout. These are examples of professional services you are obtaining from person or an organization. Tax consultancy, yes. Any other management consultancy services, tax consultancy services, legal services, auditing services, sometimes, right? Network services, whatever. IT services, like consultancy services and legal services. When you find such services, the nature of that service is day by day you will be obtaining the service, but at a particular time you will be creating the bill or the payments, right? So this day, this much of hours spent on this, on the next day, this much of hours, all that together you will create the invoice. It's not like the one more invoice, right? It's a record of the service you have made and then the invoice. Therefore, you should have the option to include daily obtainment of that service. Right? So that type of service, when you obtain professional service, you have to use the professional layout. Right? You have purchasing such service. Alright? Clear? Right. Then the miscellaneous. What do you record under miscellaneous? Name itself states that. The name of the layout itself states that what is miscellaneous. In the budget simulation, you include something called miscellaneous and some number, the value. What will be on it? Okay. Any other clear idea? Miscellaneous? There is no specific focus. There is no specific focus. Right? So we use that miscellaneous format. Then there is no suitable format to record anything. Right? So we use the miscellaneous layout, and there is almost no difference between the service layout and the miscellaneous layout. It's a very slightly different, I'll show you. Even the miscellaneous layout does the same job as the service layout. That does not have much problems. That is an edge, right? It is just there to record the transaction where you just want a record only. You don't want the documentation, you don't want to proceed further, right? You just need an accounting entry. In that case, you use the miscellaneous format. You don't, when you don't want to make it further. Right. So those are the 4 layouts. So because of the nature of my business, I am selecting items layout, right, as the default layout because I am planning to buy many of the items that are in my item list from this supplier. I am planning to buy different items, different equipment, different accessories, all that are related to my cloud, right? Because of that, I am selecting the items layout as the default layout. And then we will go to the next step. Right. Then I am required to select the expense account. Expense account for purchases. Right. But here I'm not going to specify an expense account because when I'm buying different items, different types of items, they should be debited to different expense accounts. Right. If I specify a single expense account, all my purchases will be recorded in that particular expense account. But since I have different types of, I'm planning for different types of purchases, I am just skipping that part. So I leave it blank. When depending on the purchase, I will select the purchase account. The next thing is credit limit. Right? Supplier credit limit. Supplier's credit limit means, right? That decision is made by who? Supplier credit limit. Credit limit. I hope you know the credit limit. So that decision is made by the supplier, right? We can't decide supplier credit limit. So you send me 1 million worth of goods for credit. I can't come on. Right? Supplier is I think you don't 100,000 worth of depending on your credit worthiness, right? So it will have different values from different suppliers. Different suppliers will offer us different credit limits. But for us to have a minimum value, we are including a very minimum, very low amount as the default value here. And as I told you, we are setting the default values here. Therefore, we will set a small value like 5,000 to make sure a credit value is applied to all the suppliers. Right? Later, we will go and set up them separately. Now, you should have a question, why don't we leave it blank? Why are we putting a small amount? Without that, there should be a logic. 5,000 or 8,000 or 10,000. If you keep it blank, system thinks there is no limit. No limit is dangerous rather than keeping that is one. And one is different, zero is dangerous. Zero can mean there's nothing. No. Okay. Therefore, I'm entering a small value. Then if you mistakenly leave that in the supply creation, you will be ordering unlimitedly. Right? Because system thinks there is no credit limit. Therefore, I'm entering a default value 5,000. If you float like 5,000, you can enter 6,000. Right? I'm entering a small value around 5,000. 5,000, right? Okay. Then go to the next step. So what we did specify an expense account, but we created a credit limit of 5,000 default value. Expense note, we left it blank because there can be different expense accounts. Right? Go to the next step. Then the tax code for your suppliers and also the tax code for your trade. For both, we will keep value-added tax. Okay, keep value-added tax. I hope both are automatically selected. If there's any difference in your case, you have to make sure both are subject to VAT. Right? Select the VAT and VAT for both cases. Right. So that is setting the tax codes. Then again, click the next button to go to the next step. Then the payment method. Okay. How do you? I want you to. That's why I want you to read this very carefully. How do your suppliers pay you? Select the payment method that most of your suppliers use. Right. When you read that sentence, do you have any problem or is it okay? Okay. Right? So that should be a problem, right? Supplier, how do our suppliers pay? Why should our suppliers pay us? Usually we are supposed to pay the suppliers, right? Yeah. When there is a, let's say, we settled, we ordered some goods, we received all the items, and then we made the payment, made the full payment. Later we realize there is a problem with some of the delivered items, right? So in that case, what will happen? We have already made the payment, so we return those goods. When we return those goods, if there is no future transaction with that supplier, the supplier will have to pay that money back, right? For the damaged items or returned items. In that case, what is the mechanism they are using? That's the question. Not how we pay the supplier, right? If we don't pay the attention properly, then we will just say, oh, we are paying through the check, so we'll select the check. Right? Here, how the suppliers will return us, anyway, we will select the check. From the drop down, see what are the options available. So, bank, card, all these are available. We will select check. Because we have a current account, we are accepting checks. Right? Select it. And then, next you have the credit limits set by the supplier. Right? What is the credit limit set by the supplier? In this case, there is a given setup. I'm not going to very specifically adjust this because my different suppliers will be giving me completely different credit terms. I can't specify a common credit term for my suppliers because suppliers are the ones who are deciding, right? Supplier A may be deciding one creditor, B may don't even know that. They will be deciding something else completely different. Therefore, there's no point of adjusting it here. There's no point of having the default value here. Therefore, I keep it as it is and I will skip it. Okay? I'll skip that as the default value. Go to the next step. Now, here, this is our option, right? This is from our side. Enter or select the account you wish to use to pay bills to your supplier. Now, from us to the supplier, this is the right approach. Okay? This is the forward approach. So, what is the account we are using to pay suppliers? So, that should be Sampath Bank check account. If you have a Sampath Bank current account, if you have any different account, please select the Sampath Bank current. Okay. So, in the next step, after selecting that, you can go to the next step. So, in this step, we are supposed to create the supplier cards. As you can see here, you are going to build your suppliers list. In a company, there should be a list of registered suppliers, but here we don't have any supplier up to now because we are a new company. And I have given the list of suppliers in the PDF, a document. Based on that, we are now going to create the supplier cards, right? Now, in this step, you can see at the bottom there are 4 buttons. 2 are not active. The button we have 2 buttons available are new and import. If we haven't already created supplier cards list somewhere, we can import them directly, right? Or else we can create the suppliers from the beginning in this setup. All right. So we will click on the new button to create new supplier, right? If you are writing down notes, we are going to create supplier. Okay. Click on this new button. Click on new button. This is the format to create suppliers. Not only suppliers, this is the form you can use to create any card, right? In MyUB, any parties involved with our business are known as cards, known by their card. Like the personal card, we call the contact number in our contact numbers in our mobile phones, right? So these are cards. For suppliers, we have supplier cards. For customers, we have customer cards. For employees, we have employee cards. So like that, for different parties we are dealing with, we have cards, right? So here we are going to create supplier cards. Again, in the card type, right, in the first element, card type, you can see there is a drop down, right? There is a drop down. Can you click on the drop down and see? You can convert the same format into customer cards, employee cards, or personal cards, right? The meaning is for any of these cards, it's the same format, right? For any of these, it's the same format because now you are in the supplier setting process that is automatically selected as supplier card. Okay, so in one learning, this is very important, but that's why I'm saying in this single learning, you are going to learn how to create all the cards. Therefore, learning properly without missing any piece of information, then you can easily create customer cards. Then you can easily create employee cards, right? Therefore, learning properly. So select it as supplier cards. Then the designation, right? The designation is selected as company, or else it could be an individual as well. Right? From the drop down, you can see it can either be the company, the supplier, or else it can be an individual. In case of a sole proprietor, small shop, or small individual supplier, you can mention his personal name as well as the supplier, right? But we will keep it as a company. Then you can see you are supposed to enter the name of the supplier, right? And all the other fields are locked or they are inactive. You can see in front of them you don't have any fields to fill, right? Because without a name for a supplier, nothing can be included. That is the key identifier of a supplier. Therefore, I want you to refer to the document I have given in the LNS, the supplier card list. Based on that information, we will start filling this supply card. Okay, we will first create this supply card, and then we will see how other supply cards can be created. Okay, so let me open that document, the supply cards here. Right. So the first supplier we have is Samadhya Shibi Private Limited. Okay. Then shall we enter that name? Samadhya Shibi Private Limited. After entering that name in that field, I want you to press the tab key. Then you can see all other fields become active. Okay. All other fields become active. Then go to the address. You can see address one, address in the drop down. You can enter multiple addresses, right? There can be different addresses, but select address one and then type this address 12, main road. So under the city field, you can insert the road, and under the state, you can enter it as Madhara. And under the country, you can include Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka. Okay. And then you have the phone number. Right. And then the contact person is some. Right. Fill the available details from the PDF document. If you want to fill further information like email, website, salutation, whatever it is, you can include that as well. Okay, you created the profile. All right. So once you enter information under the profile tab, you can look at the next tab, card details. Right. In this card details, you can either include a photo, any image of that particular supplier's business, or any identification by double clicking on this area, right? But we are not going to include any image of the company. In front of that, you will have a space to enter notes, right? In that note, you can write a brief description about what this supplier or who this supplier is, right? What type of goods we are purchasing from them, a small description. Why we are including them? For anyone who is referring later, can identify what is this, what type of products we are buying from this supplier, what is the history of this supplier. So that way you can have a small understanding. That is why this information are there. They are additional information, but they are not relevant for the accounting process. But for reference, it's required, right? At this point, we are not entering them, but in a real company, you will have to enter those information, right? Then you will go to buying details. Right, buying details tab. In the buying details, right, you can see the purchase layout, right? The purchase layout is selected as item. All right, purchase layout is selected as item because we set the default value to be item. Right, we selected the default value as item layout. That is why it is selected in this supplier automatically. And we are not supposed to change it. The layout is item in this case. Okay. And then purchase order delivery to be printed. Okay, it is selected as to be printed. And then shipping method, there's nothing mentioned. I will click on the drop down and see pick up. Right? We go and pick up the delivery, and then no other information is entered in that particular section. And then under the credit limit, you can see here the credit limit is set as 5,000. This is the default 5,000 value we set at the previous step. Okay. So we are going to change it. Here, Samadhyashwari has given us 250 worth of a credit limit. So let's select 250,000 as the credit limit. When you enter the credit limit as 250,000, available credit also becomes 250,000 because we have not obtained or we have not bought anything. Right? Yeah, given 250,000 and the available credit is also 250,000. And then you are supposed to enter an ABS for the supplier. I have given the number. So better enter that ABS. Okay. Australian business registration number of this supplier. Even in your examination, if you are given an ABS of the supplier, you can enter that number. If there is no ABS given for a supplier, right, you are supposed to enter the hypothetical number, right, a fake number at least, to make sure that it is a registered supplier. Otherwise, the software will recognize that as a not registered supplier in the business registration system. Then they will charge a higher tax rate in your transaction. Okay. Therefore, if it is really given, you have entered that number. If it is not given, you have still enter a fake number to make sure there is a registered. Right. So here, what I was saying is you have to anyway enter an ABN, right? There should be an ABN for a supplier, and then look at the tax codes for general purchases and their freight. For both, it should be value-added tax, and then use supplier tax code. You don't have to tick that because we have specified the value-added tax as the supplier tax code. Therefore, we don't have to specifically mention that. And then supplier terms information. Supplier terms information is the credit term that the supplier has given us. Okay. So here you can see the supplier has given us a day of month. What is the payment due? Right. When you should make the payment. A day of month after the end of month. When you are making a sale on a particular date of a month, after you let that month end, after the end of month, then you are specifying a particular date. Right? So that is the way the term is defined. And then what is the discount date? Discount date means in how many days if you settle, you are getting a discount. Right? So it's the first day. So select that as first. It's already selected in my case. Right? So keep it as first day. Then the balance due date, that means the balance of the money when you have to pay, that should be not the 30th, it should be end of the month. Whatever the month that is, it should be the end of month. So the meaning is, let's say you made the sale on July right? You made a purchase on July, then the supplier will allow you the whole month of July as a grace period. So that month is anyway given. On the next month also, when do they expect the payment? That is the end of the month, right? That is the end of the month. It's like a credit card payment, right? So anyway, you are by maximum you are getting 54 days, but in minimum you are getting 24 days. It's like that, right? So end of month, and then discount for early payments. If you settle in the first day of the purchase, what is the percentage of discount you are getting? That is 5%. So here, discount for early payments make it 5%, right? And then there is no any volume discount. Volume discount comes when you are buying in bulk volumes. There is no any volume discount applicable here, right? So those are the information that you are supposed to enter when you are creating a supply. Okay, and then look at the payment details. You can enter the bank information, real bank details if it's a real supplier, right? But in this case, we are not entering those information because we are doing a learning purpose here. So I'm not entering that payment details. And then the contact log. I'm just explaining these areas for you to know. In the contact log, it will appear all the transactions you did with this supplier, right? Once you do them. And then in the history tab, you can see the comparison between last year and this year month-wise, right? How much of purchases we have made from this particular supplier under each month. You can see that little comparison and do a small analysis. Okay. So those are information you have to actually include. Profile details and file details. These are the two major details you are supposed to enter, and then you can click OK. All right. You can click OK. Now you can see there is a supplier created. If you want to make any changes of the details you entered here, you have the button Edit. Right? When you click on that, you can see again the same form appears. So you can change anything you want. Then click OK. And also, if you want to delete the supplier, you can use this delete button to delete, but don't delete the only supplier you have created. Okay, now you have created the supplier, so don't delete it. Right. So this is the lengthy path, long path of creating the supplier. But at the examination, you should not follow all these steps to create a supplier when you are required. There is a convenient way of creating suppliers, quickly going to the same format. So I will tell you that. For the time being, we will complete this setup assistant because here we learned this path can create suppliers. Okay. Once you create the suppliers, then you can click on the next step. Right? Click on the next step. Now in this step, you can include any historical purchases, any previous purchases happened from these suppliers. Right? But in our company, we don't have any historical purchases. This is the first time we are creating the suppliers and going to make purchases. Therefore, we have nothing to enter any previous purchases. And then you can click on the next step, the last. Congratulations. You have set up the purchasing process. Okay, purchasing default condition. Right. Then you can close this easy setup assistant. Again, close this first step, close this window as well. All right, close that as well, close everything and come to this one. Then I'm going to show you the shortcut to create cards. Okay. For cards creation, there is a very specific command center specifically allocated for cards. Here and in the right hand corner, you can see card files, a command center for card files, right? Click on that, and then you can see there is an option, function called cards list, right? Click on that cards list. So you will have the list of cards under customer, supplier, employee, and person, right? In all cards, you will see all the cards despite of the category. But when you go to customer cards tab, you don't have anything. But when you go to supplier cards, you have the supplier card you create. Okay. In this step, at the bottom, there is the button called View. Right? Click on that button and see the same exact format appears. Right? The same exact format of creating supplier cards appears. All right. So now you are going to create suppliers using this step. So I hope you need a break. Do you need a break? Yes. We'll take a small 15 minutes break. After the break, we will create the rest of the supplies. Okay? Using this step. Using this step, we will create the supplies. Okay? So we'll mark the attendance and now can take a small break.
So they are done. Chalo देगा. तो गलत नहीं. Masih dari One of the management was like, sorry, I don't take question. How we get a photo of it.
All right, shall we start creating the supply cards? If we know the mechanism now, we can create the rest of the supplier cards. In the PDF document, you have the list of suppliers here. XY Company Private Limited is the second supplier. You can start creating.
Where is it?
Now, in the second supplier, there is an account, expense account specified as office equipment. I want you to ignore that, right? I want you to not include that office equipment account, keep it blank, right? Expense account, because if you select that account, whatever the purchase you are having from this supplier will be directed towards the office equipment. But there can be some other assets you are purchasing, right? Some other items you will be purchasing. Therefore, even though that is mentioned in the document, don't select that as the expense account. Keep the expense account blank for all the suppliers. Right, if you look at the terms information from the supplier, it's in a given number of days. Because if you look at the terms, you can see there are number of methods, number of ways in which you can set the credit terms, right? The first one is cash on delivery. COD is cash on delivery. If you select the cash on delivery for a supplier, that means the moment you place an order, you have to completely at the delivery, you have to make the payment, right? That means no any grace period given for that's the credit limit, that's the credit period. Prepaid means at the ordering phase you have to make the payment, not at the delivery. Even before that, when you are ordering, you have to make the payment. And then you have other options in a given number of days, then you can specify from how many days you are supposed to make the payment. On the day of the month, when you specify a day of the month, let's say 15th. Whatever the sale happens on that particular day of the month, you have to make the payment, right? And number of days after the end of month, that is again to allow the month to end, and then on the next month, you will specify a date, right? And then day of the month after end of the month, that means you give the time till end of the month, and on next month you are giving a particular day, right? So that way you can specify. There are different methods or types of credit terms you can define, and based on that, the rest of the information will vary. Here in this case, it is in a given number of days, then discount days is 7 days. Then anyway the balance should be settled in 30 days. For discounts for for settlements, you are given a 5% discount. You can see such sports supplier, the purchase layout has to be changed as service. Right? Carefully go through those details and change it accordingly.
You can see in the price for the last supplier, you have the email address and some additional details also. Put them and that. Which of creating the suppliers?
You made all the plan. That would be clear also. Clear also for that. Right. Once you create the supply cards, you can see here under the all cards list, all your cards will be appearing, and also under the supplier tab, you can see the cards, right? So likewise, you can create the customer cards, employee cards, personal cards, all those stuff, right? Then close this. Once you create all the 7 suppliers, you can close this supplier, sorry, card creation, card files tab. And then now we were talking about the purchasing command center, right? The purchasing function of the business, right? So the purchasing function of the business can be handled with the purchasing command center. Right? In my OP, there is a special command center for purchasers, right? So I want you to click on that purchasers command center. Right? Going to the purchasers command center. In this purchasers, as we discussed, now we are going to, now we have some plans, right? Now we are going to, we had the requirement, then we wanted some suppliers, so we searched for particular suppliers, now we found the suppliers. Right? We found the suppliers. Now our next step is to ask for quotations, test the purchase orders, and process. Right? So for us to start that process, we have to know how to enter the quotation, create a quotation, how to place the purchase orders, and all your purchase recording. Purchase recording part is the next step. Right? Now, for you to have an understanding, this is not, we are not going to start that process, but for you to have an understanding how this ordering process should be started with what form, and also especially to see the layouts. Right? We discussed a few layouts, and just to learn how those layouts will appear, I want you to click on the enter purchases function. Right? Under the purchase command center, enter purchases function. So this is the function you use to enter or create all those documents. Quotations, purchase orders, bills, invoices, everything. Right? When you open this format, you can see on the top left-hand corner, there's a drop-down arrow, and there's a drop-down menu when you select it. Right? One is quote. Quote is the quotation. Right? When you click on that, see what happens. The color of the format changes. Right? What is this color? Pink or white. Some people say it's orange, some people say it's pink, some say it's peach or not. Depending on your eyesight, the color, let's say orange or something, right? So anyway, the color changes. Only the color changes, nothing else changes. And then when you convert it into an order, second option is order. It turns into yellow, right? Turn into yellow. And then when you select it as a bill, bill is the invoice. Bill is the name given in my domain for the invoice. Because in any shop, when you ask for a bill, right, will be just asking for a bill. You need a bill of this transaction. So that bill is the invoice in accounting terms, right? That bill is referred as the invoice. So that is the invoice, blue color. Now this color code is given when someone is continuously entering 100 or 1000 bills or something. Then when suddenly the format changes, they should quickly see or they should feel or this is not the right format I am recording. Let's say you are entering 100 purchase orders and suddenly you see a blue color. Then you know it's not a purchase order I am going to pay. Right? For the same, I mean to as an internal control, that color code is also given. And then the most important thing is whatever the color it is, nothing changed in the format. Right? Whatever the format you refer to, nothing changed. Because all are going in the same layout. But now we will see how these different layouts will change the appearance. Okay. So at the bottom there is a button called layout. Can you see? Here there is a button called layout. Okay. Then click on that button. Then you will see the 4 layouts we talked about. Right. Then you will see the 4 layouts we talked about. There, first layout is service and which is already selected. Right. The already selected format or layout is the service layout. Then you just see what are the columns available in the service layout. You have a column for description. You have to describe what is the transaction number. And then you have the account name. You have to specify if it's an expense, what is the expense account. Right? If you are spending on an asset, you have to specify the asset account. Whatever the account, you will be debiting, you will enter the debit entry. Right? And then you have the amount. That is the rest is the additional information, the job number, the tax code, those are the other information. The main information are coming under 3 columns, right? The description, the account, and the amount. So it is very clear, this service layout does not have any column to update your inventory quantities, inventory database, right? When you have items in your list, this format will not update your item value because there is no column for quantity, right? So the system doesn't understand how many values, I mean, how many quantities you have purchased, right? Then let me change this layout into item layout. Right? Click on item layout and click on OK. Then do you see how many columns are appearing, right? There is a column for bill, right? Bill means bill quantity actually, right? For how many units are you going to bill? Because here we are referring to a bill, right? How many quantities for which we have to bill? Then when you enter the quantity here, that will be linked to the inventory database. Then that will update the inventory quantities. Right? When you place the purchase order, when you get the bill, when you enter the bill, quantity will be updated. Right? And also you can see when you bill, you anyway make sure you received it. And if you don't receive any item, then you have another column called back order. Right? Back order means reordering. If you don't receive any particular item, for that, you will have to place another order. We call it reordering in the industry or back ordering, right? So if any quantity is not received, then you can place the back order. That quantity update is also there, right? And then you have the item number, right? Why item number is given? Because this format, this layout is used to buy items in our item list. When you enter the item number, we have not created the items. So next we will create the items in the list. Then once you select the item name, item number, the rest of the information will be automatically filled. You don't have to fill everything, fill the tags, fill the balls, where balls, whatever it is, you don't have time. Just a matter of selecting the item from the item list. Everything else, for example, description, the price of that item, any discounts applicable, even the total value. They all will be multiplied and calculated, and this form will be filled. Right? Just because those items are already there in our item. The only thing is price you have to enter Because when you are purchasing from different suppliers and different time intervals, the price may vary, right? The price may vary. So that we will learn when we are making the purchases. But I wanted to show you the different layouts and the meaning of those layouts, right? Why item layout is used for buy items in our list. The reason is clear. Is it clear? Okay. Has to be clear, right? Otherwise, you will be wondering when you are getting a transaction what layout to use, right? If it doesn't contain any item that needs your stocks to be updated, no, there's no point of using the item layout, right? You don't have enough information to fill that, right? Then you have to go for the service layout, right? Then that is about the main deviation between the item and service. Then we discussed about another important layout called the professional layout. Select the professional layout and see. Do you see in the professional layout, apart from the service layouts columns, there is another new column coming in, which is date. The first column is date, right? You see the professional layout. You get the layout. Professional layout. In the professional layout, you have a column called date. That means there are different rows in different dates. That's why I told you when you are obtaining a professional service from any professional body or professional person, in every day or in a specific day, you will be obtaining a particular service, right? So you record all those services based on the day. On this day, you obtain the introduction service. Next day, you obtain the advanced service. Next day, you obtain this service and that service, right? That based on the day, you can specify the total service obtained, and then the total can be billed, right? Total can be invoiced based on this form, right? So that format is used only purely for professional services. All right. Then look at the miscellaneous layout, right? Miscellaneous layout. I mean, almost 100%. It looks similar to the service layout, right? The only thing is it does not push you to print or print an invoice. Miscellaneous layout is used only to keep a record of a transfer. In the system, if you want to make an adjustment or to make a record, only for that purpose, you are using miscellaneous layout, but that does not push you to make a payment or do anything, right? Therefore, we will, unless there is a very specific reason, we should not use the miscellaneous layout. We should be using the service layout, items layout, and if there are professional services, the professional layout, right? That is how the layouts will appear, and so that information is required for you to understand the process. I just wanted to show you the process and why we pick those layouts, right? So are we clear after that point? Are we clear? All right. So with that, we can wind up for the day, and next week we will be learning how to create items. And you have to remember, now we have suppliers. Next, for us to ask for items, whatever or whatever it is, we need to have predetermined items. These are the items we are going to sell, right? So if it's a ticket club, we should have a list of items we are going to buy and sell. Then based on those only, we are calling for quotations. Right? If we don't know what we are going to buy and sell, we can't ask quotation. Can we go to a supplier and ask, give us the list of products we operate? Everything. It's not practical, right? We have to ask category wise, these are the products we want, give us the price. Okay. So that is the plan for next week. Then you can close your company file. Make sure all the suppliers are created, right? You can go to the cards command center, go to the cards list quickly and see whether your 7 suppliers are really complete, right? Then you can close your company file and take it to your own backups.